Welcome, everyone. Thank you for joining us for Lining of Sponsorship and Letters of Recommendation. I'm Barb Kraft, Director of Admissions in San Francisco, joined here by Quinn Tron, who will be helping to field your questions.
Hi, and I'm Diane Sharp. I'm the Director of Admissions for the Executive MBA program based in Philadelphia. And with me here in Philly is Taylor Hotsko, and she will be monitoring the questions as well. And we really do want to encourage you to post your questions along the way. We'll get to them at the end of this webinar, but as you think of them, please log them on. And Barb and I will respond to as many as we can in our time here today. All right, first we'd like to address why we require letters of sponsorship and letters of recommendation. Basically, in your application, if you've gone online to start your online application, you've seen all the different pieces that are required. And the letter of sponsorship is something that's quite unique to us in the executive side of the house at Wharton. We want to make sure your company's on board with you because you're going to be working throughout. The letter of recommendation, those are similar to any letter of recommendation that you would get. So those two are such different pieces or such different documents. They add different perspectives to what your background is and your story. We wouldn't feel that we would know you as well if we didn't have the voices of the people you work for and have worked with. So it really does just add another nice piece to your app as a whole.
So in general, what are the differences between a sponsorship letter and letters of recommendation? Well, we'll talk about each of these in particular, but the letter of sponsorship is essentially permission from your company for your participation in the program. Whereas we do require 2 letters of recommendation. What those are letters that speak to the quality of your candidacy and you as an applicant, and what it's really truly like to work with you. In particular, the sponsorship letter, this letter is a document that needs to be signed by someone within your organization who has the authority basically to sign off on the release time involved with the program, as well as within the letter of sponsorship, they would address any type of financial commitment that you may be receiving. We strongly encourage that you take a look at our 2-year calendar that's out there on our website. Right now, presently, it's the calendar for our class that started this past May, but shortly we'll have up the new calendar for the class that'll start in May 2020. But it's important that you take this calendar and you review it with the stakeholders in your organization, and in particular with that person who will be signing off on the sponsorship. So the letter of sponsorship does need to be on letterhead. It also needs to come to us via hard copy. You'll upload a soft copy into your application, but a hard copy of the letter signed by that person who has the authority to grant your participation in the program and to speak to any type of financial support that you'll receive.
Great, so the letters of recommendation, as I mentioned, very similar to what you would find for any college that you're applying to. What we're looking for are 2 people who can give us insights into you as a professional, what it's like to work with you on a day in, day out basis, why they value having you on their team. Some people err in that they feel that the title would be more important than the relationship. We're not looking for someone with a fancy title who maybe went to Wharton. What we're looking for is, ideally, it would be your immediate boss who really would be able to speak to what you bring to his or her team. Basically, they should be professional relationships. We don't want academic recommendations. Of course, not friends or relatives. Those we find are a bit biased. But just as important is you want to find people who will take the time to go to bat for you. Our forms are very basic. They're asking, you know, what your strengths are, what you bring to the team, your leadership, and it would be very easy for your recommender to just fill it out with a sentence here and a sentence there for each question we ask. So you want to give your recommenders plenty of time, of course, to be thoughtful and answer these questions that we ask. But some people are so busy in their lives, they wouldn't have the time to really share examples and, again, go to bat for you. That really reflects well when somebody's willing to take the time to give examples of your work. So the minute you start your application and you input your 2 recommenders, it's first name, last name, and email address, they will get an email from our system with a link that opens up the form with our questions. Now, within that form, there is also an upload link. So I know a lot of people have recommenders who have taken the time to put together a letter, and they can upload that letter right into our form. We do have a couple of questions we'd like everybody to answer, but if what they've included in their letter is what we've asked in our various questions, then it's certainly fine not to have to repeat and answer it in our form as well, as long as that letter addresses all of those items that we're looking for. So again, I would say the number 2 reason people are not able to submit their app on time is the recommenders haven't had the time to do it. So again, give them plenty of time. But do know that you can submit your application before both of your recommenders have submitted. Don't let them cause you to submit it after the deadline, but we'll eventually have to push you to the next round if you haven't gotten your recommendations submitted.
Thanks, Diane. And one thing, you know, we should mention is that, and just as Diane said, you don't need to wait to submit your application. You can submit your application, and as these pieces come in, we will add them to your file. We are one admissions committee, East and West, so Diane and I get together with our team for round 1 as well as round 2 to make admissions decisions. Our round 1 application deadline being December 4th, our round 2 application deadline being February the 5th. So by the time we get to those deadlines, we should have all pieces of the application available to us. That said, we do want you to know when it comes to letters of recommendation and letters of sponsorship, they are one piece of the application, and we take a very holistic view to every applicant. You know, sometimes we get asked the question, you know, do I need to really have that letter of sponsorship in my application, you know, in order for you to make a decision, or can I approach my employer after the fact? No, we like to have everything available to us, because what we're going to do is we're going to look at those letters. We're going to look at the fact that your sponsor is on board, their enthusiasm and support for the program, and then again, if you'll be receiving any type of financial support. And not that financial support is required for our traditional candidates, it is required for our fellows candidates. Anyone who has, you know, slightly less than that 8 years of full-time work experience would need to apply as a fellows candidate, in which case we do expect that they are sponsored for 50% or more of the tuition. But any traditional candidate, it is not necessary for them to be financially sponsored. But we're going to look at these letters. Also, the letters of recommendation, our students work very closely together. So it's really important for us to get a good understanding of your character and what it's like to work with you. You know, how do people value you? What can you contribute in terms of a matter of expertise?
Great, so hopefully you've gotten a general overview of the importance of these 2 different types of credentials. Now we want to get to some of the questions that we've been seeing online. And again, if you haven't already posted your question, please do. So we'll try to get to as many as we can. And Taylor will be taking them for us.
Our first question is from somebody who's self-employed, and she was wondering if she still needs a sponsorship letter.
I'm happy to take that one. Yes, we do require a sponsorship letter of everyone, but if you are self-employed, you would actually write that yourself, and you'll want to do that thoughtfully. And what we're looking for when you're self-employed is really how will you carve out the time? How will you juggle? How will you have others step in to make sure that the business is running well while you're away at class?
Yeah, and I'll add on to that. When you're self-employed, there are other pieces of information that would be helpful, and you could be proactive with that, because we want to know about what your business entails. So do think about that, what you would present to the committee. And if this person who asked the question and any other views you are self-employed, we would recommend scheduling a chat so we can flesh these things out. And we'll give you more details on that at the end of this presentation.
Can I provide more than 2 recommendations?
So, and I'll take this one. So yeah, we require 2. The system does require 2 recommendations. Some of you might be reapplying, and if it's just been a year, only 1 recommendation is required. You'll see those reapplication instructions on our website and how to skip the second one. So yeah, there might be a third person out there that really wants to go to bat for you, and it's often nice. People realize you're applying and they ask, can I send a recommendation, which is really nice. But the system literally will not take more than 2. And because we're reading a large volume of applications, 2 usually does the trick. But if there is a different voice, someone from a completely different part of your life, someone who wants to share thoughts about you, it would not be via this form. It would not be those questions that we require. A person can certainly email the East or West campus. Those email addresses will be at the end of this presentation, and send a quick email with an overview, a quick recommendation of your candidacy.
On the recommendation letter, how recent should the relationship of the recommender with me be?
Typically, we like them to be fairly current, within the last few years. I mean, it needs to be someone who's truly in touch with you, and someone who you have remained in touch with. So what's really important is that they can speak to your skills and your abilities very concretely with some good examples. So in most cases, that's someone who's fairly current.
We also have somebody that asked, can the sponsorship letter and letter of recommendation come from the same person?
Yes, that's definitely okay. And just let that person know what the distinction might be. But it is, yes, oftentimes it's the person who is able to give you the authority to come to this program who also works closely with you. So yeah, that's not a problem at all. One is done online, one we need the hard copy of. And I'd like to add a little something to the prior question. Oftentimes, people will say that they can't get their current boss to write a recommendation for them because they're new in the position. So maybe their boss has just been with them a month and they want to go back a little bit to a prior boss who knows them very well. And that is more than fine. Just explain that. Just say, this is why my current boss is not my recommender. If they just don't know you well enough at this point, we completely understand. And it's different. We know in a full-time MBA position, oftentimes people cannot go to their current employer because they don't want to indicate that they'll be leaving their job if they go full-time to a program. But it's different for us because you're required to be working full-time. We do want to see someone from your current employer. But if it's not your immediate boss, just let us know. All right, so it looks like we don't have any other questions related to the topic of the sponsorship letters and the recommendations letters. We know some of you have posted questions on other topics. So Gwen and Taylor are going to answer you directly via the online portal here. And if we don't get to you, we'll stay online for a few more minutes. And if we don't get to you, we will email you the response to that. And let us know if you have any further questions.
We also encourage you to schedule a chat. If you just do have some one-off kind of questions or you want to speak privately about your candidacy, right there on our website, you'll see a schedule a chat button. And this is really an opportunity for you to speak one-on-one with an admissions advisor about your candidacy, any questions that you may have about you as an applicant or the application process. Now, this is not to be confused with the interview. Interview is a required part of our application as well. That is once you've started your application, and we do only interview in the year in which you're applying. So if you decide you're applying this year, you'll want to get on our interview calendars, either east or west. And if prior to the interview you do still have some questions that need clarification, chat is a great opportunity to do that. Thank you all very much for joining us. We encourage you to come and visit us either in San Francisco or Philadelphia. We still have a number of other events that will be happening over the next few months, both in-person information sessions as well as some other webinars coming up. Always like to give a plug for Knowledge at Wharton, which is our online newsletter, and Wharton Business Radio on Sirius XM. Thanks and best of luck.
Thanks for joining us, everyone.